Today we're here with Claire Gliozzi, an expert on the spell check function and usage in Microsoft Word. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, thanks. So many people use Microsoft Word on a daily basis. Could you give us a basic idea of how spell check works?
Well, basically spell check is a program that has two basic steps. It runs a scan of all of the words in the document and compares them against a list of known words, which is the dictionary.
Okay. So how was spell checker first incorporated into Microsoft Word?
Well, originally spell check was its own processing software, and users would run their document through the software and it would tell them if the words were spelled correctly, although it would not give them corrections for the word.
Alternate words?
Yes.
Okay.
And in the mid-1980s, spell check was incorporated into many word processing programs, not just Microsoft Word, because it wasn't originally Microsoft Word. Originally, the name was multi-tool word.
Multi-tool word.
Correct.
I did not know that. How does Microsoft Word notify its users that the word is spelled incorrectly?
There's two ways. The default setting is there'll be like a red squiggly line underneath the word, and it'll tell you if it's misspelled. And there is a way to turn that feature off if you don't want to see that while you're typing. And there's also, you can go to the spell and grammar check, which is a function on Microsoft Word, and then it'll go through every single word and it'll give you corrections, and you can ignore them, or you can insert a new word, or you can like ignore it once or ignore it if it's throughout the whole document. Yeah, so you can just change it to different words.
Okay, that's good. So that's really interesting. Are there ever issues with the validity of the corrections that Microsoft Word gives?
Microsoft Word will catch words that are misspelled. However, if you type a word that is spelled correctly, but Microsoft Word thinks it's spelled incorrectly, then it will notify you. For example, the word BAHT is the word for Thai currency, and Microsoft Word would catch that as bath misspelled.
Interesting.
Or bat misspelled, so you have to be aware of if what you're typing is correct.
So you might know more than the dictionary in Microsoft Word.
Correct.
Very good. What would a person do if the word they typed is spelled correctly, but Microsoft Word marks it as incorrect, as the instance that you gave us?
There is an ability to add words to the dictionary. For example, some people's last names, which are not very common, are usually spelled incorrectly, so you can just right-click on the word if it has a red squiggly underneath it, and add to the dictionary. Or you can just ignore it.
Okay, so you can ignore it, or you can add it to a personal dictionary, and then that stays with it.
That'll stay with the Microsoft program on your computer. Yes.
Very interesting. So you can make your own dictionary, basically. So earlier you said spelling in grammar check.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit more about the grammar check function?
Word also has a grammar check, and that has to do with like commas or semicolons. If you have a comma and it thinks you could have a semicolon, it will notify you that that usually has a green squiggly underneath it.
Okay.
And
I've seen that before.
It'll also do words like a or an and the.
So usage issues too.
Yes.
Okay.
And if a word is like plural and it should be singular
or vice versa.
Yeah.
Well, that sounds like a really useful tool. Often when reading the newspaper, for example, spelling errors can be present. Is this lack of spell check usage?
Many times it's actually overusage of spell check, because it can be a useful tool. However, heavy reliance on spell check can result in correct words being changed because Microsoft Word is unable to identify the context.
Okay.
So if you spell a word correctly, however, it's not in the correct context, Microsoft Word won't check it. And if you don't proofread it yourself or have others proofread it, then there's no way to check that. For example, like homophones also won't be caught. So like the word not K-N-O-T and N-O-T will not be differentiated, although they mean different things, and they're both spelled correctly.
But the grammar check might catch it if it creates a sentence, though, right? In which, let's say, one form of the word is a noun and the other form is a verb, and you spell it incorrectly. It may green underline that, though, right?
Possibly.
Okay. So how has spell check evolved over the years? It's been around for a while, so.
There are some situations where spell check can now detect context. However, that's not always the case. There will detect a difference between like than and then,
Okay.
like THAN and THEN. However, if it's the intended word and or not the intended word, Microsoft Word can't detect that, so you still have to proofread.
So you mentioned this idea of context. So how has the spell check evolved in terms of this concept, in terms of context?
It has become more aware, like it'll read the whole sentence or paragraph, and it'll try to detect the context in which you're speaking about it, but it isn't always reliable.
So it's becoming an artificially intelligent, right? It's trying to think for us. That's very, very interesting. Well, thank you so much for being with us. Is there anything else that you'd like to add?
Just overall that Microsoft Word is a spell check. It's a very useful tool, but my advice is to always have others read your work or read it yourself, but you can still use spell check.
Don't let the technology replace the brain.
Correct.
Thank you very much.